Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this series where we are going to be creating a fully functional and modern website using HTML and CSS. As always, my name is Soham Jain, and this is Code Entropy. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and check out part 1 of this series, or clone the GitHub repository of our code that I have in the description of the previous video. Once you have done that, you can bring yourself over to this video and we can continue on what we were doing previously. So on today's video, we're going to customize the navbar a little bit more just so it looks nicer when we're hovering over each of the elements. And we also want to make this home page look better. So that's going to be one of the main things that we're doing in this video because as of now, all we have written on the home page is just the word home. And lastly, what we're going to do is change the icon that shows up on our tab so that we can customize everything and make it look a lot nicer. So first, we want to go ahead and open the Visual Studio Code that has all of our code from what we've worked on so far. So I already have this open. If you want to take the time, pause this video and go ahead and open the code that we worked on in part 1. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is try to customize this navbar so it looks nicer when we're hovering over each of these elements. Because right now, we don't really see any indication that we're actually hovering over these elements. So what we want to do is go over to styles of CSS and we can add a hover feature. So if we do a:hover, then we can customize what the text looks like when we hover over it. So for example, if we change the font weight to be bold, then the font should be bolder when we're hovering over it. So as you can see, it looks so much nicer now because we actually have an indication of what we are trying to do. So now if we click on each of these tabs, it'll take us to that page. All right, so this looks a lot nicer than what we had before. So I would say that the navigation bar is looking a lot nicer now. And in the top left, we have just the word application written on it. Obviously, if you're trying to customize this for your own website, then you would change this word from application to whatever you would like it to be. And now what we can go ahead and do before we change the home page is try to make the icon of this tab look a lot nicer because right now it's just like a global and universal symbol and we want it to be the icon of what our app would be. So I don't have an actual app icon since this is just a test application, so I'm going to use another image. But you guys can go ahead and if you have a logo for your app or website, then go ahead and save that into a file, and then we're going to go ahead and work on that next. All right, so first we can make our way over to Visual Studio Code, and inside of this we want to create a new folder actually this time, not a file, but a folder, and we're going to call it Assets. And inside of this Assets folder, we want to have another folder that stores all of our images. So let's just call that Images. So this images folder is where we're going to access all our logos, all the images we might have throughout the website, um, just everything in general. And we want to organize it inside of this folder so it's easier to access later on. And what we can do is, so for this tutorial, I actually have this Apple icon that I'm going to use to show you how to create this logo. But what you guys can go ahead and do is pull up the icon that you're using for your website and go ahead and move it into that folder. So I'm going to search for the application folder. And I have this application, and inside of assets and images, I just want to put this Apple icon inside of there. So once you have your icon inside of this folder, you can go back to Visual Studio Code, and if you refresh it, you should have your icon right here. And it's best to have a transparent background unless your icon actually has its own background. But this should work perfectly for trying to create this icon on the tab. Now that we have this image saved, it's actually a lot easier to just create the icon and it only requires one line of code. So right here, we can put it in the head, and the head just refers to like normally what is inside of the tab. So that's what we're trying to edit. And what we can do is link rel equals, and then this time instead of a style sheet, we're trying to do an icon. And we can set the type to image slash x icon. And then lastly, we want to actually link this image that we just put inside the folder. And you can right click on that and do copy relative path. And so as you see, it's inside assets, images, and there it is, apple icon.png. And for you, it'd be whatever name you save the file as. So we can go ahead and save that. And as you can see, the icon has already updated on our website. So for me, it's the Apple icon because that's what I chose to go with. But for you, whatever icon that you want to show on your application, it should be there. And this is just a great way to customize what your website looks like. So another thing that we want to do is just be able to know what tab that we're currently on. So what we want to do is whatever tab we're on, we want to have some sort of highlight around it. So that's what we're going to work on next. So what we're going to want to do is try to change it so that the current tab we're on has some sort of background color to it. So what we can do is go back into VS Code and style the LI, which is kind of like the box around each of these elements. So we have 4 of these elements, and if we're on the home page, then we can go ahead and style it just for this one. And the reason we're not doing this in styles.css is because we don't want this same style to carry on to the all 4 of the icons, but instead we only want it for the home page. So if we just do a background color of white, we can go ahead and test out if this is working. And yeah, as you can see, it has this square around it, but obviously this does not look like what we want it to look like. So we can try to add a border radius, and we can do that for 30 pixels. And that'll add this sort of curved shape around it. And if we also want the font to be bold on whatever tab that we're currently on, we can just do a font weight of bold, and that looks so much nicer. I think it would look a little bit better if the color wasn't actually white though. So we can go ahead and change that. I would recommend if you want a slight green sort of color, just so it doesn't look completely off, you can do CBF 7C3, and that's sort of like a light green color, but it's still visible to see that, okay, that's the tab that you're currently on. But if it's too much of a green color, it doesn't pop out as much. And we want to do this for the other tabs if we're currently on that tab. So we can go ahead and copy this entire style and paste it into about.html. And we can do the same for our team, as well as contact.html. Okay, so let's see if it carried on. So right now we're on the home page, and if we hover over any of these items, it's going to be bold. And if you go to About Us, yep, that changes. And our team as well. And lastly, Contact Us. And that looks perfect. And so you can customize this to whatever color you want, whatever shape you want. Just in general, whatever you want your navigation bar to look like. But we've covered everything that we can do to customize this navigation bar. And obviously, if you want it to be bigger or change the size of anything, then you can do that as well in styles.css. So for now, it looks like we have completely customized the tab that we have, and everything looks great. And now we want to get to the actual contents of the home page. So that's what we're going to work on next. Let's start off by first customizing what this word home says and try to make the font a little bit bigger and change the wording as well. So obviously you don't want to have the word home written on your home screen. So I'm going to change it so it says welcome to Code Entropy. And obviously you can change it for whatever your website is meant for, especially if it's for a company. And in some cases, I wouldn't recommend to write welcome to, just because it might be a little bit informal. And you can also add a break in between just so it goes onto 2 lines. And this is already looking a little bit nicer, but obviously we don't want this white font, and we want to have like some sort of animation just to catch the viewer's attention. So we can go into styles.css, and what we want to change is this H1. because that is what our that's the styling for our title. So we can actually change this to first have a text transform to be uppercase, and this is just going to make everything in uppercase. I don't know, just like we'll catch the viewer's attention again. And we want to add some sort of animation, so that's what I'm going to try doing right now. So first we want to have a background image, and that's going to be a linear gradient. And inside this linear gradient, we want negative 225 degrees, and we're going to specify some colors. So these are just some of the colors that I think will look nice. And obviously you can change the color to whatever you would like to, but I'm going to use some colors that I think are nice for this home screen. So I would recommend go ahead and trying this out. And okay, so these are the colors that would probably look nice as a gradient. And we want to change some other information as well. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. And right now we're just adding a bunch of new features just so we can have our homepage looking a lot nicer than what it is right now. And we can also change the color, which actually we already have a color of white, so we don't really need this line right here. But we can also change the background clip to be text. And we can have a text fill color to be transparent. Again, this is just a lot of code, but it will make it look nicer overall. And we want to have this WebKit background clip for the text. Also a WebKit text fill color to be transparent. And then we want an animation, and that's the reason we're adding all of this code in, just so it looks a lot nicer. And we're going to set it to infinite just so this is infinitely going on and it looks a lot nicer. And so we're not actually done yet. We have to add keyframes just so it syncs everything overall. So we're going to have this text clip for the animation. And inside of this text clip, we want a 2 and then a background position to be 200%. And we want to center our text. So this is actually everything that we should need to animate our text. And so now we go from something as simple as this, and if we refresh the page, as you can see, we have this much nicer animation, and it looks very cool as well. The last thing that we can change is the font size, obviously. So instead of 70, we can make it 130, which would probably look a lot nicer. And there we go. This is a really nice title screen, and it definitely grabs the viewer's attention because obviously when you see this animation, you're going to want to learn more about this website. So what we can add next is a button that redirects the user to an external site or something that you want in your website. And then around that button, we can also add our socials just so we can get more publicity from this website. So let's go ahead and add in the button. The first thing that we need to do is inside of the body, add in the button element. So in HTML, you would just write in button, and we want it to actually open a new window on the click. So this can link, you can link it to whatever you want it to, but for this example, we're gonna make it link to Google. So we're going to do on click equals, and we want it to open in a new window, not in the same window as our tab, just so it's easier to switch back to our website whenever you want. So the way to do that is window.open, and then inside the parentheses, you want to do a quote. And then here, this is where you type in the link that you want, but in this case, we're just going to do Google. And you're going to also do this underscore blank. And what that does is it actually allows you to open it in a new tab. And like without it, you wouldn't be able to open it in another tab, and it would just open in the same browser that you're currently in. So we have to make sure to close the parentheses at the end, and that should work. So if we refresh this page, you're going to see this really tiny button here, but it'll bring you over to a new page. And actually, we should write some text on the button as well. So we can just call it button for now, but obviously for whatever purposes you're using it for, you want to name it to that. So for us, it's just a button, but the only problem is it doesn't really fit aesthetically with what our website is trying to do right now. So obviously we're going to go into styles.css and add in some code. So we'll have some styling for our button. So the padding, it would look nice if it's 10 and 40 px. Next, we want to also adjust the font size to fit with the padding, so we can do 45. We'll add in a border radius as well, which we can do as 25. And the font family, again, it's all up to you, but for this one, we can go ahead and use Lucida Sans. And it's generally a good idea to have a font that you're using throughout the website. This one, it's really all over the place, but you can do whatever you want with the font. And then we have a font weight that's bold. And so we're going to use a display block just to center this button, and also have a margin of 0 and auto. And lastly, we need a background color, and we want to use this sort of green color that we use in our navigation bar throughout the website, just so it's a universal thing in our website. And that really will make the title pop out as well. So we have this color. If we go ahead and save that, then update, you can see this button in the center of our screen, and that looks a lot nicer. But what we need to add now is a hover feature. So right now when we hover over this button, we don't really see anything. Our mouse doesn't change. It doesn't really look like a button. So one thing we can do is change what happens when we hover over this button. So for example, we can add into styles.css a button hover, and inside of this we can change the opacity. And what this is going to do is it's going to grade out a little bit, just so we know that we're hovering over the item. So that's a lot better, because now when we hover over it, you can kind of tell that it's a button. But the only problem is our mouse still doesn't change. So if you want your mouse to change just so it looks more like a button, what you can do is inside of the button hover, you can add cursor pointer. And this is going to change what the cursor looks like. So now when we hover over it, our cursor changes and it looks a lot more like a button. So I think that we're good with how the actual button works. But another thing we can do is just change the padding a little bit more. So we can make it 15 and 50. And also we want to add this border color, just because there's a slight border that looks kind of gray right now, and we want to get rid of that. So we're going to add a border color, and we'll just make it black so it blends in with the background, and it should look a lot nicer. And there we go. So now we have a much nicer looking button. And the next thing that we can add is, in case you guys are looking to add another button to the home screen, we can go back in to our code and try to add one more button, but this time we want it on the same line. So we're gonna have to change some stuff in styles.css just so we can have multiple buttons on the same line. So just to visualize this, we can call this button button 1 and the second one number 2, and we'll link them to different pages just to see if it is working. So as you're going to see, it's not on the same line, so it doesn't look good right now. But this first button will take us to Google, and the second button will take us to YouTube. So we have these two buttons, but we want to go into styles.css and change it so it's in the same line. So in display, instead of making a block, we're going to do inline, just so it's on the same line. And the margin will set to 20 pixels. And the reason that we're changing the margin to 20 pixels is just so you have space on the right side in between the buttons. And we can also add a transform to center it, and we'll do a translate x by 115%. And this translate x percentage, it varies based on the amount of text that you have inside these buttons, but for our case, 115% is going to work well. So if we go ahead and save that, as you can see, these are both on the same line, and it looks perfect right now. And these buttons are centered. We could actually change it and make it 120% instead if we wanted to. And each of these buttons is going to take us to two different pages. And so we've added the buttons, but now we want to add another section to our homepage. So instead of just having this homepage that welcomes us to the screen, we're going to want to add another section. And what we can add in that is our mission statement, or what this website is about. And this mission statement is going to be right here at the bottom of what we have so far. So we can go into our code, and the first thing that we should do is add a new section. So we want to add a new section because we're going to have a completely different entire section for our mission statement. So we can go ahead and add section, and we have to set an ID, and we'll go ahead and call this mission. And then we want to add some text in here just to see if everything is working. So we can do p, and then we can do class equals text. And inside of this, let's just write hello. And if right now we try to do anything, it's not going to show up because we have to set this ID and this class in our styles.css. So if we go into styles.css, in order to access the section, we can do hashtag mission, and we can set the margin top to be 75 pixels. And inside of this, we also want some padding. So we can do some padding top of 25 pixels and a padding bottom as well. And we can set this to be 25 pixels as well. And then we want a background color. And the reason that we're going to do a different background color than black is just so we can visualize this different section. So we're going to go ahead and do an RGB value. And we want it to be something similar than black so it doesn't instantly pop out. But we'll do 40, 40, and 40. And next we're going to do another mission, but this time we're going to do it for the text because we have our class set to text for this text that says hello. So right now, if we do color black, you're not going to be able to see it because the background is already somewhat black. But if we want to change the color, then we can change it to white. And this looks a lot better because we have a whole different section and we're able to tell the difference between what we have previously and what we've just created. And inside of this section, we can make it a lot larger and write our mission statement. So let's go back into our code. And the first thing that we want to do is change this class from text to title. And although right now it will change the color to black, we're going to go into styles.css and add a hashtag mission.title. And this is where we can style what the title will look like. First, let's set the font size to 75. And we want this text to be centered, so we're going to do text align center. And in order for it to be visible, we're going to do a color of white. And then the font weight bold, just so it pops out a little bit more. And the font family, again, this is up to you. But for this one, we're going to use Lucida Sans. So if we go ahead and refresh, as we can see, it is much easier to see. And instead of making this say hello, we can do our mission, just so you can write your website's mission statement here. So we have our mission written here. And the next thing that we want to do is add a horizontal line, but we don't want this horizontal line to go through the entire screen. So right now, if we do a horizontal line, it's going from a width of 100%. But instead, we can do style equals width 20%. And so now our line is much shorter and it looks a lot better. So the next thing that we can do is add a p text equals, and then I have a lorem ipsum copied and pasted, but if you want to write your mission statement here, then you can go ahead and do that. And actually what we can do is class is equal to, and we can set this equal to text. And inside that, we can write this text that we just pasted. So that looks great right now. And so pretty much what we have here is just our text. And if we save that, right now it's going to show up as white because that's what we have saved in styles.css. But we want to go ahead and update that so it looks a little bit better. So we already have the color as white, So the next thing we want to do is center this text as well. And this part is completely optional to you. You don't have to center your text. And all of these are just preferences, but it will make the mission statement look nice. And line height is actually what changes the line spacing. So we're going to have a line spacing of 2 in this one. And the font family, again, is up to you. But I'm going to use the Apple font here. So if we save that, then it's going to look very nice right now as our mission statement. And what we can do is copy this line and paste it again, just so we have 2 lines in our mission statement in case this is what you want to have. And you want to change the wording to whatever wording you're going to use for your mission statement. And lastly, we want to add another horizontal line in. And what this does is just close off our mission statement so it looks a lot nicer. And as you can see, when we're scrolling, these buttons are going to pop up at the top, and we don't want that to be there. So if we go back into styles.css, and inside the header, we delete this position fixed, then right now, as you can see, this is an excellent opening screen to our website, and all you need to do is scroll down and you'll see our mission statement. And another thing we can do is, in case you want one of these buttons to link to your mission statement, that's also possible. And we're going to do this to button number 2. So right now when we click on it, it'll take us to YouTube. But if you want this button to take you down to your mission statement and bring more attention to it, what you can do is go into index.html and delete what we have right here inside the quotes. And instead, on the click, we're going to do window.location.href equals, and then hashtag mission, and add a semicolon at the end as well. So when we go ahead and refresh this, if you click on button 2, it'll take you down to your mission statement. So right now, this website is already looking very nice, and it looks like something that would grab the viewer's attention. The last thing we want to do to make this website formal and make it look a lot better is something that we're going to have on all of our pages, and this is a footer. So let's start creating this footer, which is going to be right below our mission statement. In order to do this, we can go into index.html. And the first thing we want to do is link rel equals style sheet again. And this time, instead of styles.css, we're going to use this link, which I'll put in the description, or you can look at what I have here and copy that. And we're going to close this. So this is the link that we have, and it'll bring in some images that we're going to use later on for the social media icons. And then the next thing we want to do is create a new section for the footer. So we're going to do section ID equals footer. And inside of this section, we want for there to be some text. So we're going to have 2 different types of text. The first one is title, and the title is going to be Code Entropy. And we want some text that is of another class, which we can just call text. And in this, we can just have some lorem ipsum. So I'm going to copy some of this, and not all of it, but just a little. So that looks good. And we can put that in as well, just so we have some text. And that's where you can write the motto of your company or really anything that you want. And then we can have UL class equals socials, and this is where we're gonna put our social media icons. And inside of this, we want some links. So for now, we're not gonna link these, but if you guys want to link them instead of the hashtag, you can link it to really whatever you want. And we can do i.fa.fa Facebook, and it'll bring this up for us. And this is going to be our Facebook icon, so we can go ahead and copy this for Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So this one we can change to Twitter. This one we can do Google+, YouTube, and LinkedIn. But for LinkedIn, it's going to be called LinkedIn Square. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And for now, if you go into our website, you're not actually going to see anything. Obviously, the footer is going to be there, but you're going to have to select everything to actually see the text. But now what we have to do is actually style it so that this text looks a lot better and our footer is more coherent. So let's go into styles.css. and create a hashtag footer. And inside of this, we're going to have a padding bottom of, we can do 30 for now, and then a background color of black. We want a border top, but just a slight border top, so we're going to do 1px solid and white. Then we're also going to have the color of the text to be white. The text align we want to be centered, and we want to display it as a flex. And the flex direction, this matters because it's either like the text is going to go horizontally or vertically. So we want it to be vertically, so we're going to do column. And we're also going to do styling for the title that we created before. So we're going to have a font size of 40 pixels and then a font family. For this one, we'll do Lucida Sans. We also want for there to be text, and we used the .text class previously. So we want the font size here to be 18 instead of 40. And a font family, we can use the Apple font family. And we also want to have a margin. So the margin is going to be 0 and 25%, and also a line height of 2. And that, again, is just the line spacing. The last thing we want to have is our socials. So for our socials, we'll have a padding top of 15 pixels and a padding right as well of 30. And the absolute last thing is just our text for the socials, and for this the color is going to be white. And so we can go ahead and save that, and if we refresh, this is what our footer looks like, and obviously it looks a lot nicer now. And this is the type of footer that you want to have on your website, because as you're scrolling through it, you can easily see your motto, your social media icons, everything that you need for there to be. The last thing we can add, if you have a copyright for your website, we can go ahead and copy this text that we had before, and instead of a lorem ipsum, we can go ahead and delete that, and we can write copyright. And if you want the copyright symbol, you do and copy semicolon, and you do 2022 all rights reserved, and that's it. We go ahead and save that, and there we go. We have our footer as complete. So this is looking like a great homepage for now. And I think that we are actually done with what we need on the homepage. So the next step, which we'll do in the next video, is creating the About Us page. So right now we can go through each of these pages, and our homepage is pretty much complete. But of course, you want to add the text that you want. And in the About Us page, we're going to include some more information that you want on your website. And in the future, we'll also work on our team and contact us. As always, my name is Soham Jain. Please like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And this was Code Entropy.